Hello, everybody. Welcome to the breakout session, Leaving Partisanship Behind at the Polls.
Right. So I'm Drew Eyerly. I am CCL's Conservative Outreach Director, originally from State College, but I currently live down in Augusta, Georgia. Karina?
And I'm Karina Ramirez. I'm CCL's Diversity and Inclusion Director. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I live on Taino, Seminole, Cuesta Land, presently West Palm Beach, Florida.
So, a couple disclaimers as we do go through this material, and stuff for you to take out into your advocacy work as address climate issues and talk about climate policies. The first one is to remember the golden rule: treat others, the way that you would want to be treated. Nobody here wants to be criticized and talked down on and yelled at for the way that they voted, whether you're on the left or the right side when it comes to voting. We all have our reasons. The other thing that I like to consider, it was a phrase that was told to me a long time ago, is that whenever you point a finger at someone or something, you have three fingers pointing back at you. So keep that in mind. The second disclaimer is that some of the information that we're going to talk about, over the course of this breakout, it's going to be challenging. If you find yourself defensive, I would recommend that those are, the parts where you really need to dig in, look at yourself and, try to understand what is it that's making you defensive about this.
So what are we going to cover during our session today? We are going to share a variety of views about the 2024 election. We're actually going to look about how some people voted and why they voted in that way. And we're going to provide you with some recommendations on what you can do.
Let's take a look at the ugliness of the 2024 elections. So, a lot of us are very passionate about our politics. It's something that we call political passion. But what happens when that passion turns into something more? Well, now we have political aggression. This is, ad hominem attacks, just complete slander, sharing of propaganda, nothing that has anything to do with actual policies or why we're here. It is just talking down and making fun of the other side. So, as you can see, we have some examples here when Trump called Harris stupid and dumb as a rock. Um, found the Republican competitor unstable, obsessed with revenge. We have, during the debates, he kept talking about how, Haitian migrants were gonna, come here to the U.S. and eat animals. Just unfounded stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with policy, or the things that we actually care about. And then, Trump called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, where Biden came back and said things like, the only garbage I see floating out there are Trump supporters. It's very off-putting. It destroys, nonpartisan work and completely wrecks, all of our advocacy. So these are things that we want to stay away from and have nothing to do with the stuff that we're here for. So some of the examples of rage against the right. Regardless of your feelings, your personal feelings, this, the assassination attempt around Trump. Tons of memes about it, tons of, just terrible, ridiculous things that were said post the assassination. We have some examples here. Kyle Gass from Tenacious D, for his birthday, his wish, don't miss Trump next time. And while we had a lot of our actual representatives that came out and said some things, because of our work, I did not feel like that was right. So I did quote a congressional staffer about, putting a Twitter post out there saying that, get some shooting lessons next time so you don't miss. The biggest one for me, though, to really show the ugliness is that top quote with Shailene Woodley. If you don't know who that is, she's an actress and she is a huge activist for all kinds of environmental justice and social justice issues. Um, to put it blunt, she is very left of center. She shared a letter that, following the assassination attempt from Melania Trump, talking about, how she sees Donald Trump. Shailene Woodley just thought it was a beautiful letter and a beautiful message from a wife to a husband. It wasn't political, took all of that out of it, and wanted to put more of that kind of messaging out into the world. As a result, she got drugged by the left for, just sharing that. tons of posts, tons of attacks, just for being somebody who wanted to put something pretty on them. And then we had the rage against the left. Stuff like, at one of Donald Trump's rallies, one of the rally goers made a comment about, Harris being a prostitute, and that's how she got so far in her career. And instead of shutting that down and, being a professional, Trump just laughed about it, and called this place amazing. Um, I tried to find some comparable stuff, and it is really, really, really ugly to where I didn't feel comfortable even putting it on a slide and putting it in front of you all. Uh, Now, what I will tell you is what I found out is that it seemed like the left doesn't like Trump. Most of the attacks are directly at Trump and related to Trump and some of his supporters, whereas the right doesn't like the left at all. So trying to find comparable stuff was a little bit difficult, but very easy to see that both the mudslinging happens on both sides, both of the right and the left, and has nothing to do with actual policies or issues.
And now we're going to take a look about how people voted. Okay. So depending on what exit poll you saw, can you go back, John? Right there. There. These were some of the ones that were taken on November 6th. So as you can see, for a lot of people, these were the issues that were most important to them. The economy was really right up there. It was the state of the economy. For some, it was the state of democracy. Immigration, abortion, and foreign policy seemed to be the top five. I went and I looked for some stories to try to find. I'm like, okay, what were people, how did they reason their voting? So, for example, for Latino voters, a lot of them were like, you know what, I'm having a hard time paying my bills. I am concerned about that. So, I am therefore picking a candidate who I feel reflects my desire to be able to have maybe some money in the future, something that's going to help my kid go to college. For other people, it was like, you know what? Something like abortion is not really as important to me as another issue. It was very interesting to see the story in the middle, to hear women talk about why they felt that issue was not very particular to them. This particular person was like, you know what? Maybe 10 years ago, I would have cared for that issue, but now I don't care about it as much. For Gen Z, for example, this was a story about how a lot of them felt left behind. And to them, supporting Trump was like, okay, this is the person that's going to help me actually express my ideas of what it's like to be male. So it was very interesting to see the points of view on why people voted the way that they did. So we found information on climate and the environment, although it wasn't really up in the top five. We did have people that came out because climate was important to them. So the folks over at Yale program on climate communication were basically have been sharing information throughout the year before and after the election about how climate was a priority for some people. And here you can see how certain parties, representatives of certain parties voted. So immigration. This was one of the questions from the exit poll, the one that we started in the beginning. And for a lot of people, immigration was a big issue. 75% of the people that voted felt that it offered them a chance to apply for legal status. So that was the reason why a lot of people voted Democrat, and how a lot of people didn't quite feel that that was one of the issues of importance to them. For other people, it was being deported. They really feel that people that don't have documents should really not be in the United States, and therefore, for them, they picked a candidate that could possibly work on that issue for them. Faith.
So faith is another big determining factor for, how people vote. Um, I know it's hard to think that, like how could somebody with, a faith-based vote for, certain candidates? And it's not necessarily that the candidates share the same faith or the same morals or values, but it's the morals and values that align, the policy that aligns with their morals and values. So you're going to see more on, the right, that faith becomes a harder criteria for, how they decide what to vote on and where to vote. And then qualities. So, looking at this slide here, which one of these four candidate qualities mattered most in deciding how you voted for president? As we can see, people on the right, what was important to them was ability to lead and can bring needed change to our country. People on the left, what they voted on was cares about people like me and good judgment. And then we have feelings. So there's a poll here on feelings if Trump was elected president. So as you can see, for our Republican side, 98% were excited. 93% optimistic, and then we have 81% concerned on the left and 97% scared. Um, you're not going to change how people are feeling. This is one of the bigger important parts here to really consider. People's feelings are natural and they're real, and it's important to understand and respect them. um the Instead of getting angry at somebody for being excited or angry at somebody for being scared, I think it's good to sit down and have a conversation with them to understand what is it about this that makes you happy or sad. Only then can you really understand that person, relate to them, and then find a way to address their concerns or continue their happiness with something. So take a moment, understand feelings, and allow people to have their feelings. All right, so we're going to look at some videos here, some very short videos that demonstrate reactions to Trump being announced, as the elected president. There is going to be inappropriate language, just as a warning. So apologize in advance.
Election. It is a glorious day, and this is our initial thoughts from. I think that for the last 4 years, Americans have been holding our breaths, waiting to see if this is a blip on our record or if this is the true direction of the future of our country. So I am so proud of Americans for showing up and not only electing Donald Trump as our 47th president, but also a huge red wave across the country. He has doubled his numbers in major cities like my hometown of New York City. So I'm really hopeful for my future, and this is just an amazing day. I'm so happy.
Honestly, today is completely surreal. It doesn't even feel like it happened, but it totally did by a landslide. We completely demolished and embarrassed them. It's fantastic. But truly, it feels like we have secured the future of America. We have secured the future for our children. We are going to be securing the border. America is moving in the right direction, finally, again.
Too big to rig, baby. Too big to rig, baby. I'm sorry. No, 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 no. Why? I'm sorry. No, no,
For the Hispanic, Latino, minority Trump voter who thinks they're all set, what do you think denaturalization means?
For those of you who don't know, don't worry. I'll interpret it for you. It's the removal of citizenship. Yeah, Congress can do that. So for a lot of you Latinos that think that because you're naturalized, you're safe, no, you can lose your citizenship. And deportation is immediate once that happens. And that's Stephen Miller, the white supremacist they've always had a plan. Again, the Republican Party is the party of white supremacy. They've always had a plan to use their vote, and once they get the vote of the Latinos that are foolish enough to vote for them, then they discard you. They don't want immigrants here. Even if you're naturalized or have citizenship, it's never been about being here legally. It's about stripping your rights away so that you're not part of the equation and you're not at that table. You fucked around and now you're gonna find out. Que tengamos un día.
For the Hispanic,
This video is for anyone who doesn't understand why someone in their life might feel uncomfortable or want to distance themselves or not want to be in your life anymore because of your difference in political views. I just want to give you this example. Imagine you go to a friend of yours and you say to them, this person that I used to be friends with really hurt me, really disrespected me. And your friend agrees with you and they're like, yeah, that was really fucked up. Like, I totally disagree with what they did to you. Like, that's not cool. That's not fair. And then you find your friend liking that person's photo or hanging out with that person. Your friend might not agree with what they did to you. They might recognize that it's fucked up, but it's not a deal breaker. They see the damage that this person has done to you and is continuing to do to you, but it doesn't matter. They're still supporting them because maybe they have a lot of money, or they're really cool, or they have the same hobbies as them. Those things are more important to them than you as their friend. Do you see what I'm saying? It's one thing to disagree with someone on policy, but when it comes to human rights, basic human rights, that's a whole nother story. You might not be racist, but if the politician that you're supporting is, it's not a deal breaker for you. You might not be homophobic, but if the politician you're supporting is, it's not a deal breaker for you. You might not hate women, but if the politician you're supporting does, it's not a deal breaker for you. The people in your life want to feel loved by you, respected by you, safe around you. And if you're supporting someone who makes them feel the opposite, that's going to make them feel that way about you. This video is for anyone who...
All right. So in that last one, I think is really the most important one, to be honest. You know, we, how do I want to put this without kind of discrediting things? She uses a lot of left examples, but to be completely fair, there are examples on, the right side that are equal but opposite. This is something to consider, in full spectrum. We want the people that we surround ourselves to understand us and support us. And then we should probably understand why they do get upset with us for our choices. It's an open door for communication. It is a place to have a platform to reach a level of understanding and respect. So if your person across the aisle doesn't understand how you can vote the way that you vote, it's a chance to actually talk to them, but also respect in their world, they might be upset with you for how you voted. All right, so moving on to why we voted the way we did. If you could drop back one for me, John. All right, so there's a lot of different reasons people vote the way that they vote. It could be economy, it could be social issues, religion, individual rights. It could be just to spite the opposite party and their base. You're never going to know unless you talk to somebody, and then through talking to somebody, you may come to realize, okay, that makes sense. I understand why, with this being your top tier issue, that you voted the way that you voted. Um, and you also might be mad that that they just didn't vote the way that you voted, and that's okay too. All right, so what can we do moving forward? We know why everything is ugly. We understand why people vote the way that they voted. We understand the feelings that came after the way that the votes all went. So what can we do in our advocacy work moving forward? We're still building community. There are still people out there on both sides of the aisle that are looking for a home, and where political aggression doesn't exist and political divide isn't growing. And we have that here at CCL. So go out there, still keep having the conversations, talk to people, invite them to CCL, show them that we are different than the rest of society. Take time to know people's character. Don't judge them just on their vote. They may have very, very good reasons for voting the way that they voted that you can actually relate to. It's just there was another issue that was bigger, for them that, caused them to go that way. We want to stay away from the microaggressions. Even if the person, the example that I'll use here is, you're on the left, you're talking to a person on the right, that, they didn't vote for Trump. They might have voted for somebody else, but making comments about all those other Republicans, it still stings that Republican who didn't vote for Trump that you're talking to. We want to make sure that we're accountable. Accountability is such a big, big, big word. That is why it's highlighted. It is important to hold yourselves accountable as well, and understand that I want to do this advocacy work, but maybe I'm not really able right now. Maybe I am too, upset over the election results. Maybe I am just too disappointed in where I think this country is going to go that I can't have a conversation with somebody. I just want to yell. And it's important to recognize if you're there and say, okay, right now, advocacy is not for me. How else can I contribute to this? And remember, we're all still here for climate. There's a lot of peripheral issues, and things going on, but remember, climate's what we're here for, not to get into debates about other topics. Question we've been getting a lot is, how do I work with Congress? How do I go into these offices and have these talks with the way that I'm feeling? Get rid of the confirmation bias. How somebody presents forward to their constituents, their voting base, might not actually be how they feel. So be open walking into those meetings. Don't already have an assumption that this person isn't going to hear me because their party's in control. Use persuasive language. When I say persuasive language, show them how our issue and solving our issues benefit theirs, why they want to come and work with us. Uh, Too often we try to make our issue other people's issues. We want to go in there as subject matter experts and throw all these data and facts at somebody who doesn't care yet. So we need to make them care. Have that conversation first. Persuasive language. Keep our interactions positive. If you go in there with a rain cloud over your head, the outcome of your meeting with that congressman is probably going to have a rain cloud. So stay positive, keep showing that appreciation and just adhere to CCL values.
So when Drew and I were thinking of like, okay, what is it that we can recommend to everybody that's gonna be in the session? Interesting enough, I found this information by Two Paths America, and it was amazing to me how it's still fitting to where we are right now. This was from 2020, so it still rings the same. We need to return to stability to our public discourse, right? We've all agreed with that. This election was ugly. And we want to be able to get to a space where we can have the needed conversations we need to have because we have important issues that we need to solve. Their recommendation was like, we need to fix the political party system. That is a very subjective opinion depending on who you ask, but this is one of the things they put on their list. We need to get back to bipartisanship, right? This is the CCL way. We think about nonpartisanship and bipartisanship and how do we work together. We need to increase voter participation. Around 2020 and through most of the election cycle, there's been a lot of conversation about how people vote, whether the right information is provided to them in order for them to make their needed decision. What does that voter participation look like? And that's changed from state to state. We have seen that discussion in the last couple of years in the US. We need to address government accountability and ethical conduct in government, right? That is still an ongoing conversation. We're seeing that taking place now. It was happening before the election. I am sure is going to continue after this election. So this was some of the recommendations we have that we hope that you keep in mind.
All right, so Karina and I absolutely love the discussion. This is our favorite part, and we tend to blow through our slides just to get to this. So I've got a question for you all, and please feel free to click the raise your hand button, and we'll unmute you so you can share into the room the answer to this. But based on what you've seen and heard, what is one thing that you are willing to try tomorrow? Is it calling your brother or sister-in-law that you skipped Thanksgiving with, because you just didn't want to get into politics? Is it talking to your neighbor down the street with all their Trump Harris signs, and checking in on them and seeing how they're doing following stuff? What is something that you are willing to try? And the correct answer could be, I'm not willing to try anything because I'm just not in that headspace right now.
Drew, you want to call on people? You want to start?
Yeah, let's go with David. I saw him jump in first. So let's see if one of us has to unmute David Kane or if he can do it himself.
Yeah, let me try to unmute myself. One of the things that my chapter's been doing is having regular meetings with a far-right organization called Liberty Forum. And we table there, and it's a pop-up table for about an hour before they have their featured speaker. And it has absolutely been gratifying. I don't call myself a conservative, but we have in our chapter taken people that are very progressive and gone in there with the idea that we can make friends, and we can. And a lot of it is with the new kind of messaging that we've learned from Energy potential energy, and John Sabin. I just think that we're doing a great job of sort of changing attitudes inside, but we can get traction outside if we just try. So that's my story.
All right. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Emma? Let's see if we do that, if that'll work.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think one thing that I'm trying is to really watch the microaggressions and if that's the right term that I'm thinking of, in terms of sort of lumping everyone who votes for one candidate or the other into one big thing and being like, they're all this or that, and trying to be more thoughtful of how to talk about these things.
So
Did you
really
have a-
self-aware. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, it is actually I love when I hear that, because I mean, Drew and I continue to have discussions about this. I'm like, how do we make the CCL community overall more aware, regardless of where room they're in? So thank you so much for taking that step forward. I appreciate that.
Great. Donna.
First of all, I have to say that I love CCL for many reasons, and one of them is that they are very bipartisan, very welcoming, very open. They are not judgmental. When we have our meet, anyway, won't go on and on. But I strongly encourage you to get involved with Braver Angels. They have workshops. In fact, I had to miss an hour and a half of today's thing because Bill Doherty from the Braver Angels had an hour and a half on how to handle your emotions after the election. I think Beth Maslow is she did a Braver Angels event, I think, at your convention 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. Anyway, just strongly encourage you, because they have workshops on how to work with others and understand others and be together. So thank you.
Yeah, no, Braver Angels is great. If we get more right of center people there, I know that'd make Bruce Moreland extremely happy. So, Steve. Steve, you're still muted, sir.
This is more adjacent to your question. This fall, we hosted somebody from Macedonia, and he's a member of the Macedonian parliament. And we just got his position on the presidential race. And I found that I could listen and inquire and be open-minded, even though he was supporting the candidate opposite who I would. And I find that with an American, I just want to persuade someone. And I can guess at some of my dynamics behind it, but it's just an interesting observation for myself.
Yes.
No, I think that's a natural human response. Karina, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, we want to tell people why we care about something in hopes that they'll care about it for the same reasons. So, I mean, it is natural. I think that the natural response to that is also going to be for them to tell you why they care about what they care about, instead
And
of
they did.
really working towards that middle.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I was also gonna say there is a desire to always want to connect, and one way that we connect sometimes without thinking is by definitely saying this is the reason why I feel this way. It's very individualistic thinking, right? But I think that is the state of where we are, right? And in the conversation that we've I'll give an example based on my experience right now, before and after the election. it's been very interesting to be able to have conversation with people that think differently than me. One of them was not the best, but that's okay. I'm learning as well. Like, this is why I tell everybody, I'm like, if I don't try this, if Drew doesn't try this, then we cannot tell you, sit in the room and tell you go try it out, right? We do it ourselves. But I'm about to see that person after today's meeting. So, after today's conference. So it's not all lost. Like, I am still willing to go out and have a conversation and see where we are. And we're going to do this over dinner. So it's going to be one of those things. I would, normally tell people, I'm like, sometimes people might not want to talk, and that's okay. Everybody is in their own different state right now. But any effort that you are willing to do out there to continue to have that conversation is appreciated and wanted. So yes.
Okay, so what I want to do now is let's go ahead and jump back into our next slide, where you guys can log your attendance. Don't worry, we do have a whole Q&A portion as well, and I want to make sure you guys have time to actually answer questions instead of just sharing stories. So if you scan that QR code, or you can log your attendance for today's breakout. I don't think you can click that hyperlink from Zoom. We'd
I
have to
am
send you
about
this.
to put it in the chat.
Thank you, Karina.
You're welcome.
Give you all a few more moments here, about 30 seconds to get all those scans in.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.